And now it's time for my fantasy football guru, Brian Hartley, brought to you by Stella Exteriors. They've been providing professional roofing and siding at affordable prices since 1996. Did you know that only 2% of roofing contractors qualify as a GAF Master Elite Installer? So if you do the math, choosing Stella Exteriors takes 98% of the worry out. That's Stella Exteriors, 636 West Avenue in Ocean City, New Jersey. Give them a call, 609-399-1010. That's 609-399-1010. Ask for Carice. And now let's go to the Barnes Harley Davidson Sports Hotline. Welcome into the locker room, my fantasy football guru and yours, Brian Hartley. What's up, Guru?
Not much. How you doing, guys?
All right, Guru. I got a problem with you, Guru. You're in last place in our league.
Hey, I'm tied with like 6 other teams at 2 and 3, so I'm not in last place. And look at the points against me. Okay, I have the most points against me in the entire league.
I got to be honest with you, I don't break it down that far, but I believe you.
That's why you're not the guru.
Now, Ken, you said you don't play fantasy.
I do not. I don't have the time to manage it. I'm too competitive, and I'm too busy making a living. But I know a lot of friends that are like so into it. It consumes their lives for 16 weeks. So
Sure
it
does.
does sound like fun.
That's why it's a popular segment. And I guess it's, week 6 here in the NFL. And we're moving right along, Guru. But there continue to be a lot of injuries. And it's hard when you're, like Ken just alluded to, it is time-consuming when you're faced with a lot of injuries, and then you have to go searching for a player.
Yeah, and today is definitely one of those days. There are lots of injuries out there today. Lots of guys that in the last few days have had practice injuries, and it's really, really hurting a lot of guys. I'm in that place today. I'm trying to find a replacement player, and unfortunately, I'm just finding out now that one of the drops I want to make, I can't drop Devontae Freeman strictly because he already played on Thursday, even though I didn't play him. So now, I'm in a bind of whether I go down a guy this week or I got to drop somebody that I don't want to drop and could lose him for the season if I can't get him back next week. So, it's a hard thing with COVID, with injuries and everything else. It's been a struggle the entire season for me, and I know for a lot of people out there.
And excuse me, this is actually week 7. I'm sorry, week 7 here in the NFL. I'm 2 and 4 in my league, like I said. But the games I've lost, Brian, I've only lost by like 2 or 3 points. It's been real close.
Yeah, it has been real close. And that's been something that's happened to me. Again, I look at my team. I like my team. They're just not getting in the end zone is my biggest issue, and I've got a really, really high points against number, which is killing me. And I look at some of the guys that are in first place. They've got just about the same points for, but 200 points less against them. So, it's like we've said before on here, you can't play defense in fantasy football. It is what it is, and sometimes that's just what happens. So, going forward, you got to try to get healthy, try to get some of these guys off the injury list, and hope that when they come back, they can help your team for down the stretch.
And, of course, that sounds just like the Eagles' mantra. Wait for guys to come back. All right, week 7 in the NFL. Give us the Guru's picks.
Yeah, so I'm going to reverse it a little bit this week. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles 22-21 over the Giants. I'm going to give you that one first. And then at quarterback, I'm going to take Matthew Stafford against the Atlanta Falcons, Ben Roethlisberger against the Tennessee Titans, Joe Burrow against the awful Cleveland Browns. Running backs, I'm taking Giovanni Bernard playing today for the injured Joe Mixon. Justin Jackson in there had some good week 2 weeks ago, filling in for the injured Austin Eckler. And Zach Moss coming back from injury, going to play, I think, a little more for Buffalo today. Going to see some more action with Devin Singletary not really getting it done, going against an absolutely horrendous, the worst team in the league, the New York Jets. At wide receiver coming on lately, Brandon Cooks going against the Green Bay Packers. Christian Kirk coming on, going against an awful secondary in Seattle who's given up the most points to wide receiver. And Robbie Anderson, I think he gets in the end zone today against the New Orleans Saints. So those are my picks for week 7 of the NFL season.
All right, there's the Guru's picks. Now, Guru, obviously the Eagles played Thursday night, so he didn't get a chance to get your prediction, and we just got it there. That's pretty funny. But yesterday, I had a Twitter poll question. Do you feel better about the Eagles after their win Thursday night against the Giants? Right? 63% said no, Guru. 37 said yes. What say you?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I do feel a little better. They're starting to get a little bit healthier. They did have some issues the other day. Lane Johnson left the game for a little while, and that's going to be, that's always been their issue the last 2 or 3 years has been offensive line. They did look better. However, the Giants aren't that great of a team. And really the bottom line is if Evan Ingram catches that ball, that game is over. The Eagles have no chance whatsoever, and that is a ball he should have caught. So the bottom line is they came out with a win. They're still alive. They're in first place in the division. Today, we'll see what happens with that Dallas-Washington game. And, hey, it's not going to be a pretty season. They're going to have to do something, but they could squeak into the playoffs with 6 or 7 wins by winning that division. And is that something that, fans are going to be happy about? I don't know. We're always happy to make the playoffs because when we get to the playoffs, you never know what's going to happen going forward. But they need to get healthy. They need a lot of help. And they're just not that great of a football team right now, but there is some optimism going forward.
And Ken, I don't have to tell you. You remember they're not in the not too distant past. Seattle, I think they went to the playoffs with a 6-10 record, and Seattle a couple years after that made it. And they won the wild card game.
It doesn't matter how you get to the dance as long as you get invited. Hey, I want to ask the Guru a question. You've got a lot of COVID stuff popping up this week. You got Oakland, their entire offensive line may be out with COVID-related. There's a report this morning that all of Buffalo's tight ends may be out with COVID. That's got to drive a fantasy guy crazy, right?
Well, it does, especially with Oakland with their offensive line. Josh Jacobs is a solid play week in and week out. Now, he does have a tough matchup this week, and then not having their offensive line, could be a major issue for them and protecting Derek Carr. But, yeah, it's happening all over the place, and that's why the NFL expanded, the rosters and the practice squads to be able to bring these players up and hopefully have them up to speed. And that's happened week in and week out with a lot of teams, especially late in the week. Luckily they haven't had it to the point where they did a few weeks ago where they've had to cancel and move games. So that's been a good thing. Maybe they've got it a little more under control, but as far as fantasy goes, it does. It's, Josh Jacobs is a guy you start every week. He had a tough matchup as it is. No offensive line. I hate to say it, but if you've got depth, you may actually want to sit a guy like that who is probably your number 1 pick this year.
Yeah, it's a crazy year because of the COVID, and the fantasy. Once you have your team picked, if COVID pops up, there's nothing you can do. You don't have, you only have maybe 1 or 2 days to find somebody. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I'm in that exact situation today. Not necessarily with COVID, but with some late week injuries. Michael Thomas was slated to come back. I was excited to have him back. Then he gets the hamstring injury. Aaron Jones suffered an injury in practice on Thursday. He's doubtful today. Game time decision, so I'm going to be looking at that, trying to make a drop ad. Jamison Crowder, another guy, was ready to go. Then he was downgraded to doubtful. So I'm scrambling to just even try to fill out a lineup this week because of all these injuries. And to be honest with you, everyone else is in the same boat, that the waiver wire has been picked through, the last 2 or 3 days with just tons of moves left and right for people in the same situation because of bye weeks.
Hey, quick question on Antonio Brown. What is him coming back into the league with the Bucs? How does the Antonio Brown coming back with the Bucs affect fantasy? Are you allowed to draft him? What goes on when a player of that magnitude comes into the league late?
Well, at this point, he basically just goes into the free agent pool. So, yeah, somebody could pick him up today. Now that waiver wires are typically over on Thursdays, he just goes into the free agent pool. So if you're in the bottom of the bracket there, you have a chance to pick him up. But the problem is, I don't know that he's really going to have that big of an impact on that team. That team has really been running the ball a lot. They have a lot of weapons between tight ends with Gronkowski. They got O.J. Howard who's banged up, but they have Godwin. They have, Mike Evans, who's not having a great year. He's hit or miss because Tom Brady has so many targets. So even putting him in there, even if in a couple weeks he starts to get into the starting lineup, they're spreading the ball out so much. There really isn't a guy at this point besides Ronald Jones is probably their best fantasy player on that team at this point. So I don't know how much fantasy value he's going to add. He definitely adds some depth for them, in the real NFL and trying to win and make a run at the Super Bowl. But fantasy-wise, probably not that big of an impact.
All right, fantasy football guru Brian Hartley, as always, we appreciate it. And next week we'll talk to you prior to the Eagles-Cowboys game.